Last week, I tabled the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act in the House of Commons, which includes more than 80 specific measures that are effectively designed to do two things. The first is to make it harder to get bail for people who have committed violent offences and who habitually find themselves before the justice system because of the violent repeat nature of their criminal offences that they commit or have been charged with. The second is that we want to impose stronger sentences for those who commit the most serious crimes in this country, to ensure that the criminal code reflects the experience that so many Canadians have seen in their communities over the course of the past several years. Too often, we wake up to newspaper headlines that indicate yet again a violent offender has been released on bail only to have reoffended. Too often, we see cases make their way into the public discourse where it's hard to understand how a specific penalty has been issued given the severity of the crime that's being considered. The Bail and Sentencing Reform Act is going to make meaningful changes in a few key ways. But before I get into some of the specifics that the provincial government and members of Parliament from British Columbia have been particularly influential on, reverse onuses are being expanded in this bill to capture new categories of offences. One is specifically assaults and sexual assaults that involve choking or strangulation. This is something that came directly from the provincial government here, and Minister Sharma in particular, given the evidence that she cited in our conversations that people who are charged with those offences are more likely, if released, to become violent in their communities. In addition, we are adding a reverse-onus provision for people who have been convicted but have not yet been sentenced. These are people who are not innocent at law, but have had a court determine beyond a reasonable doubt that they have committed a criminal offence. I also specifically want to draw attention to the role that this bill plays when it comes to dealing with extortion. Of course, the criminal code involves very serious penalties for extortion, which is obviously illegal. Violent extortion has a mandatory minimum penalty of years in prison. If you do it more than once, it can carry penalties up to life. But that severity of extortion as a crime has not necessarily been properly reflected in the bail system. As a result of the changes that we're making, again, pursuant to the feedback of the provincial government locally and our local members of Parliament, including Randeep in particular and Suk Dalawal as well, we are changing the rules for violent extortion to ensure that someone who's charged with such an offence will have the responsibility of demonstrating why they ought to be released. The bill, as I mentioned at the outset, it doesn't just deal with bail, but also deals with sentencing. Some of the changes that we will be making will involve consecutive sentences for certain offences involving extortion. For example, oftentimes, for those who aren't familiar, if you're sentenced with multiple offences, you can serve them both at once. If you, in my view, are sentenced to one offence that carries a penalty of 4 years and another that carries a penalty of 2, you should serve both sentences for a total of 6 years. We will be establishing a series of consecutive sentences that will turn that vision into a reality, including, for example, someone who commits extortion and combines that with the offence of arson by burning down the home or place of business of the person that they were seeking to extort.
This is an incredibly important bill. It is a very responsive bill. It will be an effective bill. And I call on all members of the federal parliament and the Senate to pass this bill as quickly as possible to ensure that these tools are in the hands of prosecutors to ensure that our communities are safe.
We are really happy to see the changes that the bail and sentencing bill will introduce to the criminal code, particularly as the Premier suggested around repeat and violent offenders that have been causing so much chaos in some of our communities. We've heard from mayors and councillors that that law needs to change, and we're glad to see that reflected in the bill. Just want to again say thank you to the federal government for listening to BC's ideas.